Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well on this Tuesday. We are back for another edition of To The Point. I am Noah Warren. Hope everybody's doing so well today. Lots of different stories to get into today. Golf has continued to be at the forefront of the sports news with the U.S. Open coming up. We got the LIV Tour, and listening to some press conferences today, reading some of them, and really taking in some information. I have a theory as to why the LIV Tour is actually going to be a positive thing for the PGA Tour, which might sound counterintuitive, but I'm kind of a counterintuitive person, so maybe that makes sense. But that's something we're going to chat about today. Also, NBA Finals. Interesting game last night between the Warriors and Celtics. Didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Celtics did not cover the number. Celtics did not win the game. Celtics did not win by the money line. So that was a loser on the bet scale last night. Also, the Stanley Cup Finals a day away. Puck drops tomorrow night, and we'll talk about that today a little bit. Shamus is going to join, as he always does on the Tuesday. And today we're going to do something a little different. I was brainstorming things last night. I'm like, what's an interesting topic? Something that isn't being talked about on every show. And my thought was, what's for the 7 Canadian teams, what's the biggest wish list item that they should have going into this offseason? Meaning, if you could pick one thing, one ward of this team that they must improve on this offseason in order to get better, what is it? Is it a coach? What player? It could be player development. Me and Shamus are going to go through this, and we'll kind of give our thought. We'll talk about Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto. You go through Canada. We're going to go through every team and say, what does this team have to figure out this offseason? Could be big picture. Could be add to your defense score. We saw some good Canadian teams this year that are still in contention, could still be in the Stanley Cup window. So what do they have to do to get to that next level, get to the Colorado, get to the Tampa level, or for the Ottawas, for the Montreals, teams that missed the playoffs, what needs to happen in order for this team to take a step where they are not on the outside looking in, where they're not picking in the lottery every year and looking at mediocrity, straight in the face. So that's what me and Shamus are going to talk about. I'm looking forward to that conversation. That should be a lot of fun. If you listened to the show yesterday, I opened talking about my hair because why not? And I asked for help from the listeners. I don't want to cut my hair. I don't know why. I'm kind of enjoying the longer hair, but as you can see, it's been raining and the weather has taken, it's hurt my hair. I think it's very askew right now. It's difficult to maintain. It's all over the place. But if you have any suggestions as to what I can do, and cutting it is not an option because I don't want to do that for multiple reasons. But any advice that you can share with me when it comes to my hair, again, that's a selfish ask. Tweet, write in your comments, write in if you want to hear any different storylines today, different topics. But my hair is pertinent because it's my best feature, and at least I think. So any advice for the hair I'd love to hear it because I need something. This isn't working, and something needs to be done. And I need all of you to help me if you can. If you can, I'm not saying you must, but if you're a loyal listener, of a good brush, of a good product, anything, I will try it because I'm cheap, but I will spend money on my hair because I love my hair. That's enough about me, but I appreciate any help that anybody can offer me because I'll take it, I'll absorb it, and we'll see what we can do so that on more rainy days, because it looks like we're going to get a few coming up here, my hair doesn't look like this. So you can see, it's not great. It has its issues. I combed it, and it's still not fantastic, as you can see. Outside, going to Costco, buying stuff, and didn't help the hair today. But fun show today, and let's get into the NBA Finals. Because, as you all know, if you listened to the show yesterday, I picked the Warriors. I picked the Celtics to win Game 5. The Celtics are a better team, in my opinion. The Golden State Warriors have the best player in the series, Steph Curry. But after Steph Curry, you look at the Boston Celtics, I would take Tatum over any Warrior. I would take Brown before any other Warrior. And I would take Marcus Smart before any other Warrior. And push comes to shove, a healthy Robert Williams, I might take Robert Williams over any other Warrior as well. But we go into last night, and it was a strange game where it was a flip from what we've seen early in the series, where Golden State had a great first half. Defensively, they were locked in. But other than Jason Tatum, nobody had it going for the Celtics. They had open shots. They couldn't get them. They ran people off the three-point line. They defended the paint extremely well. And they only allowed 39 points in the first half. And Golden State could have had a huge lead, but they couldn't shoot a three to save their life. And the crazy turn of events was Steph Curry went an entire game without hitting a three-pointer. Golden State for the entire game shot 22% as a team. So as I go into half, yes, the Celtics are stuck 12, but I feel relatively good because they couldn't have played worse offensive basketball. Golden State can't hit a shot, and everybody but Steph Curry is making buckets. Meaning, if Steph Curry's having an off night, the reserves for the Warriors are not as good as the Celtics. They're not going to be able to keep up. But boy, was I wrong. Because the third quarter, Jason Tatum got it going. He was on fire. He couldn't miss a three-point shot. He looked confident after his first half, and really the first 4.5 games of this series, where he's too damn tentative. He's not confident enough. To me, he doesn't want to embrace being a superstar, and I have a big problem with that. But he finally came to play. He finally brought it, and it looked like he was going to lead the Celtics to a big victory. And the two biggest reasons why the Warriors won last night and the Celtics threw away a bad Steph Curry performance in a pivotal Game 5, turnovers and bench scoring. The Boston Celtics turned the ball over 18 times last night. 18 times. Golden State turned it over 6 times. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown threw the game away. And maybe you could argue the Boston Celtics management threw this game away, and I'll get to that theory, or not even a theory, I just think it's truth in a second. But the Celtics are led by Tatum and Brown. 2 forwards, but 2 forwards that are primary scorers. Jason Tatum is a good passer, but that's not his primary skill. Shooting the three, being aggressive on offense is his biggest skill. These guys are not LeBron James, who is a forward, but he was a better passer than he ever was a scorer, although he's going to finish first all time in scoring. So go figure there. He's a great player. But it wasn't, these guys are scorers. Facilitating is secondary. And the Celtics point guard, if you will, is Marcus Smart. And Marcus Smart is not a true point guard. He is a worse ball handler than Tatum and Brown, and these guys aren't great either. Going into this series, I thought it was Jaylen Brown's handle that was going to kill the Celtics if they lost this series. I didn't think it was going to be Jason Tatum. Because every game in this series where I thought, well, Tatum will succeed at this level of the game, or he's going to come out and play well, something happens where it doesn't go well. He's finally having a great offensive game, because every game so far has not been meaningful, hasn't been memorable. It's just been, well, Jason Tatum had 22. Great. He had 4 rebounds. It's just not enough for the best player on a championship team. That's been my thought so far this year. He's averaging 23 points a game in this finals. That's not that great. But last night he's making shots. He's getting the team fired up. The Golden State crowd is worried. And then in the fourth quarter, it was turnover after turnover. And to make matters worse, the second biggest reason why they lost this game is Golden State had 31 points from their bench. Gary Payton Jr. the third had a night. He's a great defender. I didn't expect him to be all over the floor last night, defending relatively well and also scoring. He dropped 15. Jordan Poole drops 14. That's the biggest right there. That's 29 points. Two guys off the bench made up for Steph Curry having a brutal game. Couldn't shoot. Didn't make a three-pointer. But Golden State's bench came to play. The Celtics bench had 4 points. Cornette had 4 late in the game. I don't count that. That was in garbage time. This was Derek White had 1 point, who's been massive. Grant Williams was a non-factor. The bench for Boston brought nothing, and they're also getting torched when they're on the floor. So it was a complete turn of events where, and not just to add to this, Celtics had 18 turnovers. Golden State had 22 points off turnovers. They also had 50 points in the paint. They couldn't make threes, but you have to give a credit to Steve Kerr and credit to the Warriors. They couldn't shoot a three last night. They couldn't hit the backside of a barn door, but they realized it, and they started going to the paint. And I credit a team for not just jacking up 3 after 3 after 3, because that's the new NBA. It's we got to shoot the 3. It's 3's more than 2. Well, 3's not more than 2 when every shot you don't make. But what Golden State did do is say, you know what? Gary Payton's not a great three-point shooter, but he can get to the paint. He can cut, and they're having a hard time getting him on the back doors. Poole shot 3s, but he made his mid-range shots. They got the ball into Draymond. They worked the paint to their advantage. And I've gone 12 minutes into this podcast talking about why Boston lost and why Tatum was terrible and Brown was so disappointing without even mentioning, which is a huge, no on me, but also just how stupid the Celtics were last night. I didn't even mention Andrew Wiggins. Air Canada, aka Andrew Wiggins, the Canadian former basketball player at Kansas, number 1 overall pick, traded the Minnesota Timberwolves, had a stay there where Andrew Wiggins was basically traded to Golden State, and Golden State was the only team that would take him. He had a big contract. He didn't play any defense. He was not regarded as a team player. He had a low motor, and even people in Canada hated Andrew Wiggins. He wouldn't play for FIBA, trying to qualify for the Olympics. He was criticized. He was booed. They never loved him in Canada. He was never wrapped around, and he hasn't been a great player at any stop he's had. But through this Golden State process where they tanked, they lose in the playing game last year, Andrew Wiggins has gotten progressively better. He started to become an above-average defender. He's improved his three-point shot. He works the mid-range, and while Golden State's working through issues and Draymond Green has struggled throughout these playoffs, Klay Thompson is not what he used to be. You're having hit and miss performances from Jordan Poole and Kevon Looney. Andrew Wiggins has been so consistent. He's grabbing rebounds every night. He's scoring big buckets, and he scored 26 points last night. He was the biggest reason why offensively, he's the biggest reason why they won, because he just made big shots. He controlled the offense. He played good defense. He caused turnovers. And he's just it was the Andrew Wiggins game. And to think that there's this thought, well, there was an Andrew Wiggins game, but it hasn't just been where he shows up for one game, because he's been fantastic in this series. He's been the second best Warrior throughout this entire series. Other than Steph Curry, it's been Andrew Wiggins, and to me, there's nobody even close to the two of them. He played fantastic in Game 4. He played better last night. He continues to bring it on a nightly basis. Consistent effort, consistent play, and he's just a gamer. He will guard your best player and still score mid-20s points. And then in the NBA, if you're guarding the best player The job is not to keep that player to 10 points because that's just not realistic. What the Celtics did to Curry last night was not because Marcus Smart was defending him extremely well. It's because they bum rushed him. It's because they bull rushed him and he couldn't get the ball out of his hands. He had no time. He had to make plays he wouldn't normally make. And he had to rely on his teammates. Wasn't a great Steph game. He finished with 8 assists, missed some open shots, but the Celtics did a good job basically saying, we're going to let anybody else beat us. It's not going to be Steph. However, their team accomplished that, but their players couldn't do it. In the biggest moments, Andrew Wiggins was more clutch than Jason Tatum. In the biggest moments, Andrew Wiggins is more clutch than Jaylen Brown. And kudos to Wiggins for having a tough start to his career, getting traded as a first overall pick from Cleveland and Minnesota because LeBron James didn't want him, and then accepting the deal to Golden State and buying into Steve Kerr, buying into playing this system, starting off the bench, then eventually growing to the starting lineup. He could have taken it the wrong way and he could be out of the league. Or he could have got bought out and be in a very different situation. Now he's a game away from being an NBA champion. And he could, if he has another great game 6, because he was great in game 4, like Steph Curry was, but he was also great in game 5. Steph Curry was not. If he has another huge game and the Golden State Warriors finish off this series on the road, you can make an argument that Andrew Wiggins should be the finals MVP. That Andrew Wiggins has been the best player in this series. And although I find that highly unlikely because I think the media they want to give it to Steph so bad. And I understand that. You could look at it and say he should have won the award in 2015. Not Andre Iguodala. I'm fine with that. But just anointing him a finals MVP this year where he was no good last night and Wiggins has been more consistent, you have to look into that. It should go to the best player, not the best argument. And too often it does. The best story. But Wiggins took that game over last night. He set the tone. He never panicked. Curry was not getting a bucket. They were not going to let him do it. If he had the ball, they were rushing to him. And Wiggins would have the ball, but he never panicked. And I think that led to calmness from a Jordan Poole, who had a good stroke last night, to Gary Payton, who played extremely hard, he's another journeyman. He's like a Wiggins. He's been on 8 different teams, G League and in the NBA. He's 29 years old. He's battled around the league. His dad is a much better player than he was, obviously Gary Payton the first. But he's fought to get where he's at, to be relevant, to earn minutes off the bench on a Golden State team. And now I'm curious to see how the Celtics respond because that was a demoralizing game last night where you should have won it. And the only people to blame are your best players because they turned the ball over. They couldn't hit big shots. Sure, yes, the role players could have rebounded better, yada, yada, yada. But Steph Curry, the best player on the Warriors, was horrible by his standards last night, and you lost the game where you had to put guys in garbage time. It was a 10-point game. It wasn't that close. You go into the fourth quarter, you're down 1 point, and you couldn't make it a tighter game. But Boston's been in this situation. The second round against Milwaukee, they were down 3-2. They had to go to Milwaukee in a game 6 and win it, and they did. They have to do the same thing right now to force a game 7 at home Sunday night to crown a champion. This is going to test the resolve. This is going to test the nature, the confidence of the Boston Celtics. Is Jason Tatum a superstar? Is he going to be the next one? Is Jason Tatum a superstar or is he Devin Booker? Where you get to a final and you shrink? Because I thought Devin Booker did that last year. In the biggest moments, he wasn't a great player. Great bucket getter in the regular season. Scored 60, all that. Can he do it? He's only 24. But we know sports. It's not a guarantee you get back to the NBA Finals. It's not a guarantee you get back to conference finals whatever you want to say in any sport. Milwaukee Bucks are going to be back next year. Chris Middleton was out in that second round series. I believe if Chris Middleton plays, the Bucks win that series. They're in the NBA Finals again this year, and I would have taken them to beat Golden State because they got Giannis, the best player in the world. So are you going to get by? Are you sure that you're going to get by Milwaukee again? I'm not. The Heat, who they just beat in 7 games in a tight series, I believe are going to be active this offseason. Bradley Beal in Washington, maybe he goes back to Washington, but I think the Heat with Pat Riley are going to be extremely aggressive because they know they have a core of a team that can win right now. You're a few pieces away from winning. You got Jimmy Butler. Kyle Lowry's under contract. You got Duncan Robinson, Heroes contracts that you can try to move to get assets. So the Heat are still there. I look at the Raptors even. I don't expect to be a great team next year, but could they make a splash move like they did by trading for Kawhi? Is there something out there that they could do? They got Scotty Barnes. They got Anunoby. They got Siakam. They got players that you could trade to get a great superstar level player. They are in that position again like they were when they traded for Kawhi Leonard. So I believe they'll be active. There's no guarantee you're getting back. But for Tatum, I talked about last night being the most important game, and it's the same narrative. I get it. It's repetitive. But you're the best player on the Celtics. You've gotten them to the finals. And it's always frustrating to me when you don't win when you have the best team. Yes, Golden State has the best player. But last night's game, the best player in the series was a relative non-factor. And you lost the game. In basketball, the best player doesn't always win. Giannis is a better player than anybody on the Boston Celtics, but he couldn't beat the Celtics because he was by himself. He didn't have enough help. The Celtics as a team were better. They played better defense. They got by Milwaukee. There's a change. In the past, those last couple Jordan titles, I don't think the Bulls were the better. I think Utah was a better team than the Bulls. Scottie Pippen, he had a bad back. Dennis Rodman was old after winning championships. Jordan had played a ton of basketball. That was an old basketball team. But they had the best player, and the game was different. Now, if you had a better team, you can defeat the best player. Look at all the great players that aren't still playing. LeBron is out. Kevin Durant was swept in the first round. LeBron didn't make the playoffs. Luka Doncic is not in the finals. Some of the best players in the NBA are not currently playing because they're a great player, but not on great teams. There's a shift going on. And maybe that shift will be stunted if the Warriors win the season. If the Warriors can win one of the next 2 games, because they do have Game 7 at home. But if I'm the Warriors, I do my damnedest to win Game 6 on the road because the Celtics, like I said, are just a better team. And I'm not so sure you're going to get a great effort again from Gary Payton Jr. II in this series. But if the Warriors find a way to win this series, the inferior team with the best player would have won the championship, which is a shout out to old, where the Jordans, the Larry Birds, the Celtics would be a lot like the bad boy Pistons, because the Pistons were not a skilled team, but they were a great team. Just a great bunch of guys playing basketball. But I thought I had money on the Celtics winning the championship after round 1. I was so confident they were going to win the game last night. In particular, in the third quarter where Boston started to heat it up and Golden State, who normally have a great third quarter, were lackluster. They were asleep at the wheel to start the third quarter. But you turn the ball over that much, you give opportunities to this team, you're going to get burned. Ime Udoka is a good coach. He's going to have this team ready to play in Game 6. But this Golden State team's been a lot of big, clutch finals games where Tatum hasn't looked his full version in this series. And why he would play out of his mind in Game 6, I don't know. But the Garden's going to be loud. That's a guarantee. It's the last game in Boston this year, no matter what. Even if it goes 7, it's back in goal. It's back in the Bay Area. This Celtics team knows the opportunity that they have in front of them. They can make moves in the offseason too. They can see what they can do to help Brown and Tatum. You can go out and try to acquire a point guard, a true guy that can run your offense, that can be the facilitator, the guy that bring the ball up the floor, because they don't have that right now. But that's not an easy guy to find either. The true point guards in this league are falling away. Or if a team has one, you're not looking to part with it. Portland's not giving Dame Lillard to the Boston Celtics unless you're getting a huge haul back. He's a true point, but even he's a great shooter, but he's a guy that can bring the ball up the floor and run the offense. If you're getting a point guard that isn't exactly all worldly, I think of Eric Bledsoe's back in the day, or Norris Cole on LeBron's Heat, but they also are Mario Chalmers, but they also had LeBron sitting there on the team who was the de facto point guard when they needed him most. But despite all of those flaws, the Celtics are still 2 wins away from raising the Larry O'Brien trophy. And win or lose, this will be a successful season for this team, because they almost tore it down in January, where they were a pathetic team. They look like they're going to miss the playoffs. It was a disaster for Boston. They turn it around. They get to an NBA Finals with first-year head coach Ime Udoka. If they don't win, it'll still be a positive season, but it'll rub people the wrong way, because you were so close and you were the better team. You were the better team. You didn't have to play Phoenix in the final, who are the best team in the regular season. You ran into a Golden State team that, yes, they still have Steph Curry. They got Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, but they're a different Splash Brother team than what we're used to. They're a different bunch of guys than 2016-17 with Kevin. There's no Kevin Durant on this team. It was a fun game last night. But I also worry for the Celtics, because Steph Curry had such a poor game that I know he's going to be motivated. I know he's going to be a killer come Thursday night to close this out, because he can have a game, a statement game, that there's a no-brainer that he's the NBA Finals MVP. He can have one of those games where he's just making shots. He finishes with 40-plus points, and they'll give him the award after the game. He can do that. He can earn that NBA Finals trophy, because to me, there's now a debate. I don't know who would win it in Boston. But the fun thing is, you'd say, well, Steph Curry might even win the Finals MVP in a loss. Well, no, I don't look at it that way. Because if Boston is going to win this series, if they're going to win Game 6 and Game 7, somebody is going to step up and earn that award themselves. Somebody's going to have a game where you go, wow. Jaylen Brown scored 45 tonight. There's in a Game 6, a must-win at home. He was fantastic, and he plays a great Game 7, he'll win the award. If Jason Tatum plays great in Game 6, drops 35, and then drops 30 and 10 in a Game 7, he's winning the award. So in the NBA, it's different, because in the NHL, there's the Conn Smythe Trophy. It's about your body of work in the playoffs. So that's what it's supposed to be, unless you just like the narrative better that it should go to somebody that hasn't won one yet. But in the finals, it's about your totality, what you've done. You have between 4 to 7 games to earn the Finals MVP, to earn that award. And I find it hard-pressed who would win it on Boston right now. I threw a little bit of money on Robert Williams as a long shot. I'm not out of it yet, because Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus, name me a Celtic, they haven't played great. They haven't. These Celtics fans in the media, Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo and all these guys from The Ringer, they got a better chance of winning. This got an outside chance of winning Finals MVP for propping this team up. And I mean that with all sincerity, because I'm a big fan of The Ringer. But It's completely wide open. The finals MVP, like the MVP, it's ridiculous to make an argument about who's the front runner for MVP in November of a season, because so much is going to change. College football, after 4 weeks, it goes, well, who's the Heisman front runner? We still have 8 games left. Can we not watch at least half of them before we start these conversations? For this series, if Golden State wins, I don't think it's a lock Curry wins it. I'd be shocked if he didn't, because the media loves him. But if Andrew Wiggins has a huge game 6, he should very much be in the conversation. No doubt about it. For Boston, no clue. But they got to win 2 games. Somebody will step up and earn that award if they find a way to crawl their way back to the Larry O'Brien. It's that simple. But the Celtics are not going to win any games if they continue to turn the ball over the way they have been. They're also not going to win any games if they allow Golden State to dominate them in the paint, which is not something Golden State is fantastic at. 50 paint points last night for the Golden State Warriors. Crazy. But when Shamus joins, we're going to talk about this a little bit as well. He's a huge Celtic fan. I know it's got to be hurting him today, because I think he was confident, like me, that the Celtics were going to win last night. I didn't text him during the game because I didn't want to. He gets emotional about this stuff, and I like to be there for my friend. I like to pretend that I'm there for my friends and family, when they're emotional, and I like to be there and, be present is a word that I would use, but from afar, just I'm there for. It's like Jerry Seinfeld. There's this great episode of Seinfeld where Jerry and Elaine are friends with this couple, and the couple are kind of on the rocks. They're thinking about getting a divorce. And they have this great idea. They're not going to try to, snake them right away. They're just there for you, wherever you need me to be. That's kind of like me with friendship when they want to get emotional with me. I'm not right there. I'm not cradling the arm. I'm not, helping you up, so to speak. But I'm there from afar. I'm present. I'm over in the corner, sipping a whiskey. But I'm there for you because I'm present. Unlike that other friend that couldn't make it, I'm here and I'm present for you and I feel for you. So you as the audience and me, the host here, we're going to be present. We're going to be there for Shamus when he comes on the show in a little bit, when we would talk about the Celtics, because I do feel for him. But then again, I don't. And this is the great thing about not being a fan of a team, is you can just enjoy it. I used to be a fan of teams. I stopped being a fan of teams right after grade 12. I dropped all allegiances. I really have none. I don't miss being a fan one bit. I enjoy watching from what I view as just no biases. There's no love into it other than my love for the sport. But I don't get upset. I don't get worried. I don't have any big emotions. I watch my family watch games and people I care about, and it's like you're pulling teeth. It's anarchy. It's complete misery, where I don't miss that at all. I watched the game last night. Okay, Golden State won. Okay, yeah, I bet on the Celtics. I can live with that. I'm not broke. I'm not rich, but I'm not broke, so I'm still doing okay. So that's. But I credit the people that are fans, but I think my heart and I think my blood pressure is going to be better in the long run. Maybe we'll see. If yours isn't, I'll be there for you. I will be there for you. I promise you that I will be there for you. I will be present and be there for you. What a great bit. Great show. If you haven't watched Seinfeld, I'm not going to give a PSA to watch Seinfeld in 2022. The show's been out for 30, 40 years. But you haven't watched it yet, come on. Come on. What are you doing? Stop watching Grey's Anatomy season 22 and watch Seinfeld. Come on. Now, before Shamus comes on, let's talk some golf again. Because, boy, this has been great. The PGA Tour. The gift that keeps on giving. Because today, multiple top players met with the media. Jon Rahm, Phil Mickelson, who said very little, Justin Thomas, and Rory McIlroy, who made the biggest headlines and was so great on the mic. And Rory McIlroy, who's been very much pro PGA Tour, against Greg Norman in the LIV Tour, said he loves legacy, history, and has been the biggest advocate for the PGA Tour since all of this started, had a lot to say today. And the biggest one being when he said that players that joined the LIV Tour took the easy way out. Ouch. Interesting thought there. He also went on to add that what we did, the PGA Tour players in Canada last week, was real. It meant something. It had stakes. What they did over in London on the LIV, it meant nothing. That'll never mean anything. This is so great. Number one, I love Rory McIlroy. Not because he's defending the PGA Tour, because I'm not blind to the fact that the PGA Tour has a lot of warts. They have a lot of problems. I think they should have been giving players money for a long time now. I'm saying guaranteed money. I think that should have been happening a long time ago. It hasn't. So I'm not sticking up for the PGA Tour. They've done some bad stuff. Okay, guys leave. I'm fine with that. However, what I am a fan of is content. And this is all I root for. I don't root for teams. I root for content. What I am a fan of is Rory McIlroy, who has been good on the mic in the past. He's extremely good. He's thoughtful. He gives good answers. But Rory McIlroy giving me content and giving us great quotes and telling us what he really thinks. Because if there's any media person, if there's any fan of the sport of golf that hates Rory McIlroy today for speaking his mind, stop watching the sport and stop watching sports, because you're the reason that we get nothing. You're the reason we get Sidney Crosby bland, nothing answers. Rory McIlroy is speaking from the heart. He's being honest, and I appreciate it, because there are too many athletes who give you nothing. Nothing. Rory McIlroy is basically telling DJ, Phil, Charles Schwartzel, anybody in your mother, fuck the LIV and fuck you for going over there. I love that, because I admire that, because that's something I do, and occasionally it gets me into trouble. But he's telling us his real emotions, his real thoughts. He's not, well, we're happy to play the game tonight and we feel good. No. He's giving you genuine, honest reactions. And I love that. Could you say he's a puppet of the PGA Tour? Okay. The LIV people and the people saying, well, you take the money. Rory McIlroy was offered the money to go play in the LIV Tour. And if the LIV didn't offer him any money, number one, they did, because they just did. But he said no to big money. So he can literally say, I didn't take the money. They offered it to me. It's not about money for me. It's about legacy. It's about playing against the best players. So the money line, you're a hypocrite line, oh, you go for this amount of money. He said no. So that line doesn't work in this. He's completely doing it on his own. And then Jon Rahm chimes in. Another good guy on the mic. I've never really played the game of golf for monetary reasons. The LIV Tour is selfish and taking away from the PGA Tour. Interesting. And then even Brooks Koepka. Brooks Koepka says the LIV Tour has painted a dark cloud over the U.S. Open. There's nobody to blame for this but them. Now, did the LIV Tour players do anything wrong? You could say no. They're taking, you know, the Saudi Arabia is the bad person here. Greg Norman, I don't have any feelings for him. I don't think he's good for golf. I think he's upset from the PGA Tour that he wasn't put in a higher position. Wah for you. You get to go on the LIV, and you were never that relevant on the PGA Tour. You weren't a great player. Rory McIlroy has 21 wins now in the PGA Tour. You have 20. How do you like that? But why the LIV Tour could be a good thing for the PGA Tour, but in the big picture, a good thing for golf is that it creates headlines, it creates drama, and it creates intrigue. Golf is exciting right now. They're talking about it in the States. Dan Patrick Show, the Herd with Colin Cowherd. I listen to these every day. The LIV Tour has been a topic of discussion for the past week. They've never talked about golf. Golf is never brought up, but now golf is a mainstream topic. People are discussing the LIV Tour. They're discussing rivalries. They're talking about Rory going after Phil. What could this mean going forward? There's intrigue in the sport. The Canadian Open, I read this afternoon, had its best ratings in 22 years. 2.28 million people on average were watching the final round on Sunday. This is the States. This isn't just in Canada on TSN. This is the Golf Channel. This is on CBS. It did great ratings. Golf is winning right now. The LIV Tour, I could care less about. I'm not going to watch the LIV Tour. It's in teams. I hate the format. It's gimmicky. It sucks. The LIV Tour is like the USFL or the XFL, where it doesn't have any appeal. There's no great person that you want to watch. Herschel Walker wasn't a great player when he was playing in the USFL. He was beat up and he wasn't what he used to be, like he was in college. There was nothing that made you want to draw to watch the USFL. I don't want to go tune in to watch DJ. I could care less about Dustin Johnson. Okay, Phil. But what I do like is that there's intrigue in the sport right now. There's some hatred. There's rivalries brewing. I believe Phil Mickelson and Rory McIlroy used to have a pretty good relationship. I don't think they're going to have a great relationship. Phil Mickelson, who is normally very talkative, normally has a lot to say, normally has a lot of opinions, didn't have an opinion today. Basically said nothing. He didn't have the balls that Rory McIlroy did to just say what he needed to say. Phil Mickelson couldn't just say, I'm doing it for the money. I'm 51 years old. I've lost some money gambling, as you all know. Thanks, Alan Shipnuck. And you know what? I'd like to get a payday. I'd like to get a couple greenbacks in my jeans, play a couple years here on the LIV, maybe come back, play in the Champions Tour, play the majors, and then I'm retired. And who knows, maybe Nick Faldo will retire and I'll hop in the CBS booth with Jimmy Nance. Maybe that's the plan. But he couldn't do that. He couldn't just say, I did it for the money. He had to talk about morality and ethics and growing the game, which is the dumbest answer ever. Whenever anybody says they're growing the game, it's a lie. Because you know who's actually growing the game? Rory McIlroy. By playing great golf, by giving great answers. Phil Mickelson is destroying the sport by giving nothing. By not having an opinion, by not sharing anything worthwhile, by not even addressing the topic. I credit Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, John Rahm to a lesser extent, Koepka, who even said some stuff, for speaking out, for sharing their opinion. Because the only thought now is, if you criticize the LIV Tour, well, you're a hypocrite because you take the money if you were offered it. These guys were offered the money to go. If they weren't, and the LIV instead wanted to ask Pat Perez and Charles Schwartzel and you name it, then they're dumber than I already think they are. Okay, you got DJ and Phil and Kevin Na. Good for you. Who cares? But if you didn't They offered a large sum to Jon Rahm. Bet your last dollar. They offered a big sum to Rory McIlroy. They offered a big sum to Justin Thomas because they're the three biggest names in golf. And clearly they said no because they're still playing on the PGA Tour. So these men have a leg to stand on and say, you know what? I didn't take the money. I'm not in this for LIV. I actually want to compete against the best. And when I win on the PGA Tour, when I win a major, I want to beat the best guys to do it, not beat, Nick, Tom, and Peter, who've been playing in their backyard, sculling balls into the water for the last 20 years. Go look up the leaderboard at the LIV tournament. I watch a lot of golf. If I had to look at channels that are most frequently viewed, TSN and Sportsnet will be up there. The Golf Channel might be second or third. I watch a lot of golf. I like listening to the commentary on it. I find it extremely interesting. I couldn't tell you some of the names on the top of the LIV leaderboard. They're complete nobodies. You could have told me that they were a plumber, and I wouldn't have fought you on it. I could have been Peter last name. I said, oh, yeah, that's Peter from accounting, right? No, he's a golfer. No clue. And I know a lot. I know pretty much every name. I'm not trying to sound like more of a know-it-all than I am, but I didn't know who these guys were. So to think that Jon Rahm, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy were not asked to join the LIV Tour is just foolish. I will start to give more credit. I will start to give more credence to players playing on the LIV Tour when they finally admit why they're really there. When they finally admit, you know what, I'm playing on the LIV because I want the money. Just somebody say it. Somebody say it, and I will come on and applaud them on this show. Do it today. I'll applaud. Do it right now while I'm on the air. And I will applaud you for having the balls that your other compadres, that your other coworkers, if you will, didn't have the balls to do. Just say, I wanted the money. Don't be Dustin Johnson, who says, oh, now I don't got to play golf for the rest of my life. Excuse me? You don't have to play golf for the rest of your life. You got a mountain of money, and your stepfather is Wayne Gretzky. But in all this anarchy, in this LIV versus PGA Tour, in this Greg Norman versus Jay Monahan, it's creating intrigue. This U.S. Open is going to be fascinating because if a LIV member wins it, that is terrible news for the PGA Tour. I believe Rory McIlroy is on a mission. He just won in Canada. I believe he wants to win this weekend some badly. You can't expect Phil to win. Phil's not going to win. He's 51 years old. He's not playing good golf. He'd be lucky to make the cut. Can Dustin Johnson go on a run here? DeChambeau is coming off of an injury. He's on the LIV now. How's he going to play? If a LIV member can win this major, it'll be a big headline. But also, if you see a tournament where all the LIV players play horrible, that would be intriguing as well. Dustin Johnson may not make the cut. If he doesn't make the cut, DeChambeau doesn't make the cut, Phil doesn't make the cut, that's interesting too. Because all the top LIV guys would have missed the cut at their first major since joining this rival promotion, if you will. That wouldn't be good for LIV. Because if that's growing the sport, so you're growing, the AHL? You're growing the sport to be inferior? But this weekend is going to be fun. Starts Thursday. Recently started a little betting pool with Casey Ward and Shamus Fillmore, my co-host, as always, on Tuesdays. And I believe Shamus has the first pick this week. So, I could see Shamus going with a LIV guy. Seems like a big LIV Tour guy. He's an accountant. He likes his money. All those accountants, they control the money, So I'll keep you updated on the picks. We usually do it about Wednesday night before the tournament starts. And as I see him joining, we do have our pool this week, but I think Shamus could be a LIV Tour guy. I could see him picking a lot of LIV guys because he's an accountant. He likes his money. He's a lot like, he's probably a lot like Dustin Johnson. He wants to make as much money as he can before he's in the ground. So that's. But maybe we'll ask him before we move on to other things. As I see him join on the Zoom here. Shay, fair to say, are you a big LIV Tour guy?
I think it's too early to tell. I'm not going to rule it out just yet, though. Seems to be like they're having a lot of fun over there, making a lot of cash. Charles Rothrill, he's having a good time. I hope I didn't butcher his name there, but yeah, I'm looking at the names on this upcoming weekend. See Phil, get to see DJ, get to see my boy Sergio Garcia.
Yeah.
all avid members of this community we call the golf family.
Yeah.
So who knows? It could be some cash thrown those guys' way. How embarrassing would that be if a guy from LIV dominated this tournament? You know what I mean? Like, we don't even think about it, but
no, it's so true. And on the other hand, I think if all the LIV guys miss the cut, well, the PGA Tour would be doing cartwheels on the 16th green, just seeing all these guys melt. And it's interesting too, because I think Rory McIlroy just wants to go out there and win just to spite everybody on the LIV Tour.
That was quite a comment he made after he won. One more than I read. Is it
Greg Norman?
Yeah, Greg Norman. Yeah, the old Greg. That was funny. Yeah, I think some of the audio or the Saudi Arabia guys might hire Buddy from Happy Gilmore to throw in a couple chirps on some of the guys on the PGA.
Right.
Jackass.
Yeah. That would be so Saudi because they could definitely afford it, and they probably do worse than heckle. They probably do the second edition where they like hit them with their car or something like that.
Straight to the violence.
They're pro violence, but. I got to ask you.
Okay.
How are you feeling today after, I don't know if you call that a collapse last night or just, how are you feeling today after Boston Celtics loss?
Not great. Obviously, no one likes to be down 3-2. I guess I'm just disappointed in the effort, I guess. There was just sloppiness and turnovers and, defense. And there was times where offense just looked, Jaylen Brown, God love him. I think he's a great player, but if your only move is to drive into the paint and then kick it out, and half the times you lose the ball doing so, I mean, is that an effective approach for offense? It just doesn't make much sense to me. And I mean, I'm sure we'll probably go into great detail here in a second, but it was tough to watch. Just basically swearing at my TV for about 2 hours straight.
Bigger, I guess, how am I going to phrase this? More surprising. The fact that the Celtics had more than double the turnovers to the Warriors, or the fact that Golden State had 27 more bench points than Boston.
I think it's more shocking about the turnovers. The bench has been quiet a lot of the series for Boston, and that's partially why they lost last night. You can't have Golden State's bench scoring 30 and your bench scoring, nearly 10 points. That's just not going to cut it. The guys who are coming off there need to produce more, and they need to be more effective. It feels like our big guys are the only ones driving offense, and half the time, like you just said, they're turning the ball over anyways. So, how well can they do? I was disappointed in some of their efforts for sure last night, especially Derek White. Thought he could play better.
Yeah, he had one more point than us, and that's tough night for him. But I thought last night was an interesting game for Tatum because there's times where I thought he played really well. But then I look at him and I'm so frustrated because he's too tentative at times for me. He should just demand the ball more because he couldn't miss a shot in the third quarter. But then he's like, well, no, take it. And he's almost apprehensive of being the go-to guy, of being the superstar. And I think if he just takes the ball last night and just kind of leads the team and says, okay, enough. I'm taking this over. They win the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he played himself onto the bench in the first quarter with like 5 minutes left, which, was strange, but obviously he wasn't being effective. And then
Yeah.
he had, a great second and third quarter where you just said it. He drained everything. Everything from beyond the arc was going in, and he just couldn't carry that over into the fourth, which, if he does, maybe that we get a different result today. And I agree. Like, there's times where you just gotta say, like, give me the ball. I'm gonna put us on our. I'm gonna put the team on my back, and we're gonna get there. And Curry does that a lot. He didn't do that last night for them, but he does that a lot in this playoff run, and that's kind of where they ended up. And that's, if you want to be a superstar in that level, then that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and for Golden State, you said Curry 16 points he had 8 assists, but he had a porous game by his standards. But
Worst game in the finals for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And he, they rushed him the whole night. He had 2 guys on him every time he touched the ball, and that should have worked because you stop him. But Andrew Wiggins, Air Canada, the man who was never loved by Canadians because he wouldn't play FIBA or go play for the Olympics, was never loved, but he's been phenomenal in this series. I don't think he's had a bad game yet, in my opinion. He guards, he's scored, his mid-range game is great, and he grabs boards. He was great again last night. I think he was the most important player for the Warriors on both ends.
Yeah, last night was by far his best game of the finals. That being said, nice double-double, 26 points and 13 rebounds. But on top of that, he was great defensively. Made a lot of great stops, and there were shots he was taking, and I was like, okay, that's not going in. That's well defended. And he was making them look easy. Fadeaways on it, whether Tatum or White. Like, thoroughly impressed with his game, and like that's what you need from a guy who maybe normally doesn't put up, around 30 points. Steph Curry couldn't do it last night. He picked up that slack, and I would have loved to see one of our guys do the same thing. Jordan Poole's on the bench making buzzer beater shots. You know what I mean? Like, you got to admit, like, that changed the momentum of the game when he makes that shot and they go into the fourth quarter, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Because Golden State were on their heels, and they just having a 1-point lead can change your psyche a little bit. And by the end of the fourth, I mean, Cornette was playing. I mean, Celtics were in garbage time playing their reserves of reserves. Looking ahead here, if we look back and say the Celtics lose Game 6 and they lose in the finals, is it too easy to say they lost this year because they don't have a true point guard on their team, or is that fair?
I don't want to throw it all on a guard because I think there's a lot of aspects that are also just disappointing, like the bench. I didn't think the bench was great for the finals. They might have been a spark plug during most of the other series, but Grant Williams has been ice cold for most of this finals. Where was he putting up 20?
He's got the Draymond hex on him.
Yeah, he's got some kind of hex guarding guys last night, throwing them around. Yeah, after your comment about him comparing him to Draymond Green, I can't get that out of my head. It's kind of disturbing to watch him play now. It's pretty tough. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, Marcus Smart's hurt. He's hurt. Is he playing poorly? 100% he is. He can score 20 points, but he didn't defend particularly well last night. And I didn't think, he took some bad shots in the beginning of the game that, maybe he could have made an extra dish off, or maybe that was a drive instead, because he is strong, so he can get to the paint and he can usually finish. Do they need a point guard that's going to get them over the edge?
I'm not saying it has to be an elite guy, but they just don't have a ball handler that can like initiate the offense, because I looked at so many turnovers last night. Tatum and Brown, at times they're very good, but Tatum had 5 turnovers last night. Brown had like 5. They do it too often where they had 18 as a team. I just think you need somebody that's just safe with the Golden State had 6. And it's huge why they lost.
No, I agree. Taking care of the ball. I think if Smart can't get it together and be more of that ball handling guy, then I can reason with you that that's a that's a major reason why they're losing these games, because they just can't keep control of anything on the perimeter, and they just throw, like Smart was throwing passes into Jaylen Brown last night, and they were just going right over his head. You know what I mean? Like I get it. You see a size advantage down below, but if you're not going to make an effective pass, don't do it. And he tried it 3 different times, and I was just like, this is just idiocy. Like, why are you still doing this?
So what's your confidence level going into Game 6?
I think Boston will win. I have a confidence level of 75% that we will win.
Wow.
Because I think with this team, you know, odds against our backs, I think there is a chance that we'll push this to Game 7, because we've done it before. We've done it, I think, in worse circumstances, if I'm being very honest. And I think that if there's any team that could, I think these guys could. But obviously, there's got to be major adjustments. Your boy Robert Williams, he wasn't half bad last night. He was probably one of their better players. And I laughed at you when you said you put the future on him, but
I'm not out on him winning Finals MVP, because who's the front runner for the Celtics right now? Like,
everybody's falling off.
Fournette,
me and you,
garbage time minutes.
Maybe Nick Stauskas, another Canadian on the bench. Great bench guy.
Because but I feel decent about them too. My only worry is Steph Curry is going to be hungry to finish this off, because I have a hard time believing the media won't vote for him for Finals MVP if they win. But Wiggins has been really good too. And if Wiggins has a Game 6 where he's the focal point of why they won, he could sneak in and be the Finals MVP. And I think Steph wants it badly.
Yeah. I for Canadians' sake, I don't think a Canadian's ever won the Finals MVP. So
Anthony Bennett didn't win one?
yeah, over in Siberia, maybe in the league that Adam Sandler went to scout when he was in Hustle. Maybe that league he won MVP.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you got Celtics. Would you take Celtics money line?
Just to win, or for the spread? You mean
spread?
Oh no, I think it's going to be a tight game. I think Thursday night may be the most stressful game I've ever going to watch. I'm calling it right now.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then back in Golden State game. Oh, I hope so, because I have the Celtics on a futures bet to win. So, I mean, if they lose, what I would be most frustrated with, if you're obviously a Celtic fan, is they're a better team than Golden State, top to bottom. And they beat Milwaukee, who had a better player than they had. Giannis is better than any Celtic. Curry might be better than any Celtic, but good teams are beating better players in the NBA now. It's not like where Jordan beat Utah, where I think Utah is just as good of a team or better. And you look back, the Mavericks might have had a better team just fundamentally than
Miami,
than the Heat. But you look back in time, normally the best player wins a series. I think now it's changing, where you can have a better team that will beat the best player in a particular series.
Yeah, like Brooklyn and Boston in round 1.
Right, exactly.
Better players.
They beat 2 teams like that.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing I had in my notes, and because we're still talking ball, what's a recent, or maybe even in the past, guard matchup in the NBA Finals that you've particularly enjoyed watching, or maybe just sparked interest in you? A lot of people will probably say Kyrie and Steph because they faced off so many times.
Couple years, yeah, those were good. Yeah, Steph was in so many damn finals.
He
went up against Lowry in 19 too.
That's right.
If I go back, Tony Parker was kind of old. Him against Chalmers wasn't exactly thrilling. Maybe I'll go 2 guards. Ray Allen and Manu.
Okay.
2 older guys. Both were making clutch shots in particular the 2013 finals, where they were both making big threes. Both had a big impact on them winning, and Ray Allen was a big reason why they won. But that's a 2-guard matchup that comes to mind. I'm trying to think even farther back.
Yeah, I always thought this would be good to see, and I know they only faced off once, but to see Jordan try to get matched up or locked up by Gary Payton would have been interesting to see back in the
Yes,
90s, because they would
right.
have matched off at least once.
That would have been fun because he was such a good defender, and his
Yeah,
son had a hell of a game last night.
he did. Probably the game of his career, if we're being
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, he's a journeyman too. I give credit to
5,
him.
yeah.
He's bounced around. He's 29. I thought he was way younger than that, but he's a seasoned vet. He's just been on G League and D League and Matthew Dellavedova teams.
I'm
trying to think again in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I mean, Rondo. The problem with these point guards is they're not like Rondo's a good player. He might go in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but he's a good player. Where if he's going up against Kobe, where you're like, wow, or like Rondo and Derek Fisher, that's not exactly a sex appeal.
Yeah, no, I agree with that one. Yeah, it's not great. Trying to think of one here, I guess.
Kobe and AI.
Yeah, that'd be a great one. Yeah.
01 there.
Early 2000s, yeah.
That was, because they were both in their prime then. And
absolutely.
AI. The fact that they won one game in that series. I looked up because I was listening to a podcast recently, and I looked up that 01 Sixers roster, and I can't believe he won a game. I think he scored 50 in game one, and they won. But he was playing with like me, you, and Wardo in that series. He was with nobody.
Yeah, he was LeBron before LeBron.
Right, yes,
getting to the finals with nobody. Like that was ridiculous. In a good Eastern Conference too.
Yeah, no, I mean, NBA, we got a few days left. It's either Thursday or Sunday, and if you can believe it, the draft is a week from Thursday. So there's no it's just these GMs got to basically, if whoever wins this series, Boston or Golden State, celebrate, have your little victory parade, and then you got the draft the Thursday night. So there's no rest for the wicked for the NBA.
Yeah. Is that a content thing where they just keep it rolling, or do you think it just managed to get that way?
I think it's for content, but it's also strange because they have the draft, which next Thursday, which is like the 24th or something. I'm wrong with the date, and then the free agency only starts August 6th or August 7th. It's late, so it's a big. There's summer league in there and things like that. But
summer league is right around the corner. I saw the thing. I couldn't believe it. It's July, I think, like mid-July.
Early July. Yeah, right after Canada Day.
Yeah.
So, but NBA. I'm hoping that I have faith in the Celtics to a degree, but I don't feel as confident as I thought. I was certain they're going to win last night.
Yeah,
and they
just come out with such a pathetic effort. Like I was just distraught by how out of the gate how they played.
Yeah, it was a bad first half. 39 points was not what we're looking for. Let's go to. I sent yesterday. I thought we could do the wish list, and I thought this would be a fun exercise where we could go through each Canadian NHL team and look at each team and kind of pinpoint what the number one thing that the GM, the front office people have to figure out this summer in order for the team to improve, whether you're going through a rebuild. Every team's going to be different. But I thought we could go through this, and I thought it'd be a fun exercise and start to think about free agency and whatnot. So I'll let you pick. What team do you want to start with?
Most people listening would probably say Toronto, but I'll delegate that one for a little later. You want to start with Winnipeg?
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, I'll start the bottom of my list. For me, what Winnipeg needs to do is find an identity and find out what is going wrong in this locker room, because clearly they're, Scheifele's comments and other guys' comments afterwards, there's clearly something wrong, and you got to weed out some apples, basically some bad apples that are kind of turning the room inside out. You got your coach leaving, and guys are frustrated. We talked about this maybe last week, but Scheifele more than likely looks like he's going to probably leave. I don't think he's happy with the team he has.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's Dubois, maybe it's Ehlers, I'm not sure who it is, but clearly somebody's got to go. And if it is Scheifele, that's going to be disappointing for them. But maybe it's for the best.
Yeah, I have something very similar. I have be in or out on competing. This team is kind of. They're always, well, are we going to do anything at the deadline? They never do. and well, we got our core and you never improve on it. My thought is figure out who you are. Are you a team that's contending for a title? Or are you a team that's going to go through a rebuild? Because I think they could go either way. You talked about Scheifele, that he could be traded. I don't disagree with that it just seems sour there. To me, Blake Wheeler, it's going to be hard to move that contract, but he's another guy where I think his leadership has worn thin. I don't think he's given great thoughts to the leadership core, the GMs, and I wouldn't want him back. He's not a great player anymore, but also you got a guy who's not that great anymore and he's a malcontent. That's not a good thing. So is Dubois, is Ehlers your core moving forward that can lead you to the promised land, or do you have to make moves in order to rebuild to get better? You got Hellebuck. So you can always say, well, we can be competitive, but I want to see Winnipeg make a decision. Are you be in or be out on competing? Being in the middle on anything in life is a bad place to be.
Yeah, and I mean, they got picks too, so if they decide that they're out, then you can probably rebuild pretty quickly with the guys you have in there.
Right, and if they trade Scheifele, that's a big move because your number one center is gone, and you have Dubois, and you could try to add to it, but it's tough position because Kyle Connor is still an elite player. I think Ehlers is a very good. Morrissey is a solid player, so you got good pieces, but if Scheifele, if it's not repairable, I find it hard to believe you're going to be a cup contender when you trade. You're not getting a haul back from Mark Scheifele that can, I believe, contend for a title next year.
Yeah, I agree with that fully.
So yeah, Winnipeg's interesting, but Cheveldayoff's been there forever, and Maurice just left, so he's got to figure it out because he's definitely on the clock here in Winnipeg because they haven't had the success that I think they should have, because they've been the most interesting, the best team in Canada going into last season, but they just didn't put it together.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Just find out what you are and go be it.
Who do you got next?
We'll go up one. I got the Canucks, the next on my list. For me, the Canucks got to fix their PK. And how they're going to do this, I have no idea, but they were last this year in penalty kill, which is pretty disgusting. I think the solution for me is getting Tyler Myers out of there. He's played 3 seasons there. He's been okay. He's not been $6 million okay. I think you got to find him a new home. And maybe that's a package deal with Garland. I know management hasn't been happy with him. Coaches didn't like him where he was at. He wants to play in top 6, but at times he looks like a bottom 6 forward. That's getting him a new home may be the best thing for it. Fixes something, and maybe you get something in return for 2 guys like that.
Yeah, Garland's interesting because he was such a pain in the ass in junior, and maybe that's starting to fester now in the NHL. He gets his money, and now they signed him to that long-term extension, and it's already gone sour after 1 season. So that's not a good start. I agree with the PK. My other thought is back end help. I love Luke Schenn. I know you do as well. Former Maple Leaf top pick. He's a good Ontario boy. He's from Saskatchewan, I think. Good Saskatchewan boy, hard worker, Stanley Cup champion. We love him. Tyler Myers. Didn't understand the signing in the first place. I've never loved Tyler Myers as a defenseman. I don't think he's that great of an NHL player. He's not great offensively. He doesn't defend that well. I don't know what he does. He's kind of a non-unicorn. He's just very big. He's very big. But help the back end so that Thatcher Demko doesn't have to have a .967 save percentage in order to make the playoffs. You have one of the best goalies in the league. Yeah, it's such a luxury to have. And he's on a good contract. Hopefully Pettersson can start the season in October and not mid-January. That would help. Yet, you look at this team, if you can get some good help on the back end, maybe you make a splash. John Klingberg is out there. That would take a lot of money, but you got to look. You got to be creative with your defense core. Maybe there's trades. Winnipeg, if they tear it down, could you get Nate Schmidt back on your team? Could you make a move for a Nate Schmidt? He fit in well in Vancouver. I like him as a player. He's a good defender. So I look at their back end that will help their goaltending and also your aforementioned penalty kill.
Not that it's probably high on either of our lists, but Brock Besser's a restricted free agent. What's the thought process with him? I've seen people say they might not come back. What do you think?
I bring him back for the right number. I don't think I'd pay him more than $5 million. And that's probably my cap. Maybe if you get him at 4.5, that'd be great. He is a good goal scorer, but he is very inconsistent. He's got him and Pettersson can be bad for one another because Pettersson at times can be such a good defensive forward. He can back check. He steals pucks. He could be a Selke winner, in his career. But Besser is lazy. And I think that can wear on some of his teammates where he skips on effort and maybe that kind of lingers to them. So I'd bring him back, but for the right number. What say you?
I feel the same. I probably give him maybe a little bit more leeway. I'd probably give him more money if you wanted to be competitive, because I think he could be a big part of this team. But like you said, if he's asking anywhere, say towards 7 or 7.5 million, I think you got to think about other options and maybe doing what they did with Kevin Hayes years ago and just trading him off and getting like a 3rd or 4th round pick for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't sign him to a long term. It'd be short term because I don't want to get like a mountain on your books as well. Who's up next?
I have the Flames, your Calgary Flames.
My Calgary Flames.
The most obvious here is re-signing Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, that's far and foremost the most important thing. Just coming off his nice little bridge-year deal that paid him 3 years, $7 million. Yeah.
Yep.
Johnny Hockey's just not coming back. I think the fans probably have accepted it unless it's coming back for a really, really friendly deal.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't see it. And you need some leadership. You need a guy who just scored 100 points. And a lot of people are just gonna say, "Well, he was riding on Lindholm and Gaudreau's back," but that's not the total case. I think Tkachuk had a lot to do with that, and he'd be very, very high up on my list of things. Probably number one out of any Canadian team if they had to make a move.
Yeah, I would bring Gaudreau back on a fair contract, like you said. And
what's a fair contract?
Yeah,
I have a number, and I want to see if it's close to your number.
Okay. 9, 10.
I have 9 over 8 years.
Yeah, I do 9 over 8 because you have 8 years of it.
Yeah,
I would do that. I don't think he'll sign that, but I'd do it. I think he'll want 10, 11. If I'm Calgary, I'm not signing him 8 years at $11 million. I'm just not. He's too inconsistent, and I agree with you. I'd rather have Tkachuk on an 8-year deal at $11 million than Johnny Gaudreau. Because I think Kachuk's going to want a lot of money as well because he's a Tkachuk. But getting Tkachuk back, and also think getting some bottom 6 help against Edmonton. Jarnkrok couldn't score a goal. Dubé couldn't score a goal. Lucic has never been able to score a goal since 2011. So getting some bottom 6 production, some forwards that can really help your team. Maybe they take a sniff on your boy Ilya Mikheyev and they overpay for him. I could see that being something that Calgary does. Just something to add to their bottom of their lineup to get some goal scoring.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mangiapane is another one. He's an RFA. If you can get him at the right deal, obviously 35 goals never hurt anybody. So yeah,
not bad to have in a contract here.
Yeah, nice Toronto kid. Okay. Maybe he'll come home. Who knows?
Making $800K.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a little Nylander for Mangiapane deal.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. And they do have the room, but like I put down number 1 D-man. Obviously, that's not easy, especially with the cap room and what Tkachuk's going to leave you. Maybe only pennies.
Right.
But like I'm just not confident that Rasmus Anderson's a number 1. I think he's probably a really, really close number 2, but I just don't think he'd have it to lead to the promised land. And kind of saw that a little bit in the playoffs this year.
Yep, totally agree. He's very good, but he's not elite. Who's up next for you?
I have the other Alberta team, the Edmonton Oilers.
Do you just hate the West or what?
Well, I went west to east.
Okay, I was gonna say, what is this? I hate you for the West.
Just want to get closer and closer to us every step
Okay,
here.
fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, no. So Edmonton, obviously, the big one here is a goaltender. That's they're missing in the playoffs, amongst other things. But yeah, a goaltender is number one, and if you want to scoot number two in there is depth.
Yeah.
They only have 8 forwards signed, and some of those forwards probably are going to get let go. You need to rebuild your bottom 6 with guys who are going to be effective and are different. There's a lot of guys who just kind of do the same thing in Edmonton. Besides Cassian, he's a little out there, but other guys you need different things from them, and I just find there's too many cookie cutters in their bottom 6. Sorry.
Yeah, netminder's the easy one. All in, whoever you can get. I'd make calls on Gibson. He said today he didn't request a trade. Doesn't mean he won't get traded because he doesn't have a no trade. Who gives a crap if he doesn't want to get traded? Doesn't mean anything. Trade for him. It is in division, but make the right offer. You can make it happen. Ville Husso, I'd have him. Marc-Andre Fleury, not my number one choice, but hey, he's better than Mike Smith, although you'd have a 37-year-old and a 41-year-old goaltender. Yikes. It's basically like AARP to the umpteenth level. But make calls on Sergei Bobrovsky. Maybe they eat some salary. Just ask anyone what their goaltending situation is, because yours sucks and you have a good team. You could go and win if you have the right goalie. And Edmonton, just don't leave any stone unturned is basically my thought on that.
You said it best last week. You could, if you're Ken Holland, you can't look Draisaitl and McDavid in the eyes if you come back and say, "Oh yeah, Mike Smith's going to be our guy again this year." Mm-hmm. That'd be just embarrassing. One guy, obviously close to my heart, Campbell. Is he even a valid option on this team if he signs Carey Price? You might say, "Hey, I like the cold. I like McDavid. I'll sign here for $3 million for a billion years."
Yeah. It would be a last resort. I'll say that. I don't think he's good enough to win a Stanley Cup.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But he's better than Mike Smith, so it would be an upgrade. But the two goalies one guy I would not call on is Freddie Anderson, because he's worse than Mike Smith because he's not even eligible to play. So that's the one guy I would not call on if I'm the Edmonton Oilers.
Gotcha. Okay.
Also, secondary buyout Zach Kassian.
I agree with that. Yeah,
he's got 2 years left at 3.5. Buy him out.
Yeah, that deal is definitely worn thin. I fully agree with that one. He's meant a lot. He's probably a really good teammate. I can feel that in his locker room, but that doesn't mean that you should keep your job, especially for that cap.
You can free up some money and get your team better. So yeah, buy out Zach Kassian.
Yeah, they need better penalty killers. Finally, an Eastern Conference team here, Montreal. Montreal's interesting because they don't have a ton of room to sign guys because Suzuki just signed, and we'll probably see Shane Wright this year. So things are looking relatively good for Montreal. I'm not gonna lie; they have 14 picks in this draft, so they can basically just shoot at a barrel, and they're going to hit a guy or two. But I had Romanov and trying to figure out a contract extension with him. He's up. Is he a number one D-man? No. Is he going to be? Probably not. But I think he can be an important top 4 defenseman on their team. So I think they need to find a way to make that work somehow.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I also just draft well. They've been a bad. Kotkaniemi was not a great pick. Caden Gooley looks like a good pick. But you said they got 14 picks in this draft, and they got the first one. It's vital that this is a good pick. Shane Wright seems like the guy they're going to pick. I wouldn't pick Shane Wright.
Who would you pick?
I pick Slafkovsky. You're out Slafkovsky from Slovakia. I think he's got more upside. It's the riskier pick, but he's also got the more. This is like the NFL draft where Kayvon Walker was taken first overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is the more unknown prospect. He might be better. Where Aiden Hutchinson was sitting there at 2, what he is. He was great in college. Shane Wright is a number 1 center. He's like Suzuki. He doesn't have a great offensive game, but he could be a Patrice Bergeron-like player. Slafkovsky could be a guy that turns into a game changer. So Montreal, with that pick, make the right decision. But like you said, they got 14 picks, make some good picks, and also trade some of those picks for players. Make
Yeah.
some moves where you flip picks to teams that want to move up so that you can get better players on your roster. You can use those to your advantage, and that's something I think Montreal should look to do in the draft in a couple weeks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Maybe some seasoned veterans in the bottom six too.
Yep.
Maybe a lot of young guys.
Yeah, they're extremely young. Their top players are all young. So having a stable third line center that's been around the block a few times. You know, Corey Perry, I think, was great for these young guys. Having a guy like him, or even a better version of Corey Perry at this point of their career, would be really important for Montreal. Like Joe Pavelski's been in Dallas.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to one of your favorite teams, the Ottawa Senators.
Ooh, I got some text yesterday. Like apparently it was too hard on the Senators yesterday.
You were hard on a couple people yesterday. I listened for a little bit. But no, Ottawa Senators, obviously for me, the biggest thing is locking in Norris. Guy scored 35 goals for you last year. I mean, I would say he's a proven number one center, but he looks like he can be that guy. I still think he needs strides. There's a lot of things about his game that I don't like, but there's also some upside to him too. And I think that him and Kachuk have a really, really good connection with each other. So keeping that aligned is probably in the best interest for them. I have a number for him. Do you have a different number one thing for Ottawa?
Trade Matt Murray.
Oh, yeah. I almost deemed that as impossible, so that's why I had a hard time.
Well, apparently your Leafs are kicking tires on Matt Murray, so maybe that's the landing spot.
I won't be a Leafs fan very much longer if that's the case.
If Pierre Dorian can trade Matt Murray, even if they eat half of it, he should be given a contract extension on the spot because this guy is. If they could get rid of him, I agree about Norris. If there's an opportunity get another great center on your team, try to do that, develop Stützle. They got a good young team, but they're not going to win anything without a goaltender. Anton Forsberg is a backup bridge guy. They need a number one goalie. They've drafted them. They haven't hit. So that's my thing with Ottawa is just where your team can be great, but if you don't have a goalie, you're not going to make the playoffs. You're going to be 2 years away from being 2 years away forever. And I don't want to be a hater on them forever, but I'm going to have to be the truth teller when they're garbage. And I just, they are a good team. I love Batherson. Chabot's a great player. They could use some help in the back end too, because it's a little inexperienced and it leaks oil at times. But also goaltending is not great, and you need to find a solution for if you want to even pretend to be competitive, you need a goaltender.
Yeah, no, fully agree with that too. I just didn't know if they want to try Murray again, maybe for a third year, see how that goes. But I have it in my books too. Picking up a superstar like player. I mean, obviously they have to start doing something and they have to start making progress. Being at the bottom for this long is just kind of embarrassing at this point. Sorry, Dawson. But you have a ton of prospects. I mean, this team is filled with guys who have a lot of potential. So maybe trading one of those guys, maybe shooting with a pick and grabbing a number.
What about Scheifele?
Why not? That'd be a great pick. He comes in at a great cap. He's a leader, obviously, and I think he'd push those young guys to play hard because he does every single night.
Right. I agree. No, he'd help Norris a lot. He'd help these guys. He'd come in and instant respect from the locker room, and I think Winnipeg, that would kind of say, they could get a good haul in return. They get some good players and good prospects. So that's a trade I try to make before the draft, because then you could use your draft picks to throw in as well. Winnipeg gets more picks. They already got 2 picks in the first round with New York's. They could have 3, and then they could make moves from there. So that could be an interesting angle for both teams if they could make a deal like that happen pre-draft.
Yeah, I think keeping Kachuk there would probably be a big concern. Everyone's saying he's going to Calgary now that he went out in there and supported his brother. And
he's under contract. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I know. Just fudge around. I like to have a little fun. So let's go to the blue and white here. My favorite team, Toronto. I mean, it's clear. It's clear what they need here. They need to get a goaltender, a half decent one at that, if they ever want to see number 2
Second round.
Yeah. So I have in my book Son Campbell, but I think that grows a little weird on me. The more I think about it, the less I like it. But I said it before, trading William Nylander for John Gibson seems like a viable option. Of course, you make a hole there in your right side, but you'd be able to fill that somehow, whether it's signing McKay for a low contract if you take it, or trying to go out and grab someone. I don't know, maybe you couldn't afford him. Maybe an Andrew Copp.
Love Andrew Copp. He'd be top of my list for Toronto. He can play center, he can play wing. I hate that he's got a tinted visor, but that's the only thing I hate about him. I love the way he plays the game. And yeah, mine was, I put in air quotes, stable goaltender, because they love to bring in goaltenders that just get hurt in inopportune times or can't play or check themselves out of games. I just have a guy that's just you trust. And Husso is a better option than Campbell. If you ask me, I'd rather have Ville Husso. I think he's a better goaltender. I'm not saying he's a number one yet, but I think he has the potential to be. And this Toronto team is not like they were even 3-4 years ago, where defensively they were out to lunch. They're much better than they used to be. They will lock it down when they have to. And having a great goalie, having a good goalie with this team gives them a good chance of having success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, there was times in the playoffs and in that first round, I just shook my head because I was like, what's the... Anyways.
So as a Leaf fan and seeing Tampa back in the final, if Tampa wins, does that give you solace because your team lost to the eventual champion, or is that a loser's race?
No, I don't think like that. Anything can happen. We could have lost to Florida. We could have got dusted by New York. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't mean we would have been right there. So means we played a really good team though, which I that's fine, but doesn't mean we would have been standing right toe to toe with Colorado either.
Right. Where are you leaning in the Stanley Cup final? As we sit here today, the game 1 tomorrow night, where's your head going? Who do you feel is going to raise the cup this season?
I think it's going to be super tight, but I think Colorado is going to take it. And I think they are because Cale Makar is gonna push through, and not for any other reason, not any other player. I think Cale Makar will take. He will easily steal a game or two for Colorado, I think.
So he's going to win the Conn Smythe?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if they win, he's going to be the best. And I think that Makar Hedman toe-to-toe is so fascinating because you arguably have the two best defensemen in the world. They're going up against each other. Hedman's kind of had that mantle for a long time. And if Makar can beat him head-to-head, it's hard to argue that he hasn't passed him, because this is how you define stuff in sports. You go toe-to-toe with one another. It's like combat sports. You fight a guy, you think you're better than him. Well, if you don't beat him inside the cage, you don't beat him in the boxing ring, you're not, because he defeated you. So I look forward to that. I even think McKinnon / Kucherov battle will be interesting because they're both hotheads. Kucherov doesn't mind throwing a cross-check. McKinnon has a bad temper. So that is another interesting superstar angle to watch in this series.
Yeah. Are you going to wait for tomorrow to reveal your pick, or are you?
No, I'll do it right now. I'll talk about it more tomorrow as to why, but I got Tampa 3-peating 6 games.
Wow, 6 games too. Okay, I'll take Colorado in 6. That's my pick.
I just I'll talk about it more tomorrow, but Tampa the goaltending for me, it pushes it over the edge.
Yeah, that's fair. That was a hell of a last 4 games for Vasilevsky. I mean, we all watched it. He did exactly what he was supposed to do and shut the door. And kudos to the Tampa Bay defense too. They just completely outplayed New York's. And I don't think it's a dive at New York, but I think New York's defense is still really young, and I think they still have a lot to grow on. But I think they will be there one day. I just don't think that they had it in them. And not saying that Igor made a lot of great saves, especially in Game 6. I mean, that was Tampa's game, and Igor kept them in it the entire time, kept them at 1-1, and then obviously Stammer shut that down pretty quickly.
Get some breaking news here. Toronto Blue Jays left-handed pitcher Hyunjin Ryu will undergo elbow surgery and miss the remainder of the season. General Manager Ross Atkins announced on Tuesday. So Ryu is done for the season, and Ross Stripling's been filling in very well for Ryu and in his place, but this opens up a spot for the Toronto Blue Jays pitching rotation that I'm sure they'll look to address at the trade deadline.
Yeah, they'll need to, if they're serious about contending, they'll need to get somebody, because if they leave that hole waping, then it's clear that they don't care. And not that Ryu had a great beginning to the year anyways.
Yeah, this isn't a big loss for me. He's been pretty awful since he came to Toronto. And yes, it's a big cap number, but there's no salary cap in baseball. So they can make some moves at the trade deadline. It's not like losing Alek Manoah, who you could argue is the front runner for the American League Cy Young right now because he's been pitching so well. But yeah, Ryu, he's a loss, but also it's not going to crush this isn't going to cost the Blue Jays a World Series, Ryu going down.
No, I fully agree with that too.
So Tuesday now, I know we're looking ahead, but any big plans this coming weekend? Anything did you end up getting to watch Top Gun 1980s version?
No, I haven't watched. It's actually the 80s. No, I haven't watched that one, but it's on my docket for this weekend. Is I'm going to watch that movie. If I watch any movie, I usually pick one a weekend, and I think that's the one I'm going to go with. So that way I'll be able to do that, and hopefully maybe next Tuesday I'll be able to slip into a theater somewhere and catch the groundbreaking movie. Miles Teller shirtless for a lot of it, according to fans.
That's what's getting rave reviews? His chest?
Yeah. His chest is actually winning an Oscar this year. Nothing else. Chest and mustache combination.
I heard it's pretty easy to win one because Tom Cruise might win it.
You never know. We should start acting now. Maybe we'll be there someday.
Yeah, I mean, might as well. I could start a role. I did read today that Joker 2 is a go.
Oh, it's green light.
Lady Gaga might play Harley Quinn in the upcoming film.
How do we feel about that? I know you've questioned her on The Star Is Born. So
yeah, I questioned that whole film and why it had to be made, but I'm intrigued. I'll say that because you know more about this Harley Quinn. Margaret Robbie plays Harley Quinn, right? Another crap. So. Is that like a singing role for Margaret Robbie, or is that what kind of character is a Harley Quinn?
Not really. It could be a singing role though, because she's kind of crazy and she's kind of out there.
So she like the Joker's helper?
Yeah, she's like his mess. She's basically his wifey. So,
okay.
Yeah, it could be interesting.
That pairing makes sense.
Yeah. And she, I guess she's just as crazy or crazier than him. So you think about, Locke's character in that movie, you got to find someone who's even more out to lunch than he was there. So.
Interesting. Okay. You're selling it on me more, but I'm just excited for Joker 2 that it is a go and the script has been written. So I'm excited for that. And I haven't been back to a theater since the pandemic. And I think my movie, I'm saying this, I'm going to go see the Elvis movie. I'm excited for that one. Yeah, that's the one I'm going back to the theater for. I'm looking forward to watching it.
Is there any particular reason or?
The guy who's playing Elvis looks exactly like him. And I applaud that because I think that's a huge part of making a movie about somebody. Tom Hanks plays his manager, and his manager is a real dick in real life. So I want to see how he does in that role. I'm sure he'll be great. It's Tom Hanks. But I know I'm starting to read up more and more about Elvis. He's an interesting cat. There's a documentary I'm going to watch before the movie. So I want to see how they do with it. These movies about people interest me. They're hit or miss. I thought the Elton John one was a pretty horrible film. But then I thought Bohemian Rhapsody was a fantastic movie. So, they're interesting because they can go either way.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, there's definitely a demand for that movie now as making recurring recreating these these famous singers, or even even if not singers, directors, actors. And it seems to be in high demand now. It seems like every year there's one or two that kind of come out, so I'm very intrigued too. I think this will be a really good movie.
No, well, good stuff today, man. I always appreciate the time, and enjoy. If you get to the movie this weekend, enjoy it, and enjoy. Good luck Thursday night. Try to stay calm.
Yeah, for all you listeners out there, maybe a good luck text, or put out your Celtics jerseys on your on your front porches, because we need all the support we can get.
Well, best of luck, and we'll talk next week.
Thanks, Laddie. See you next week.
Thanks to Shamus Fillmore. Always fun to chat with him on a Tuesday. And yeah, Alec Manoah pitched great last night for the Jays. Hyun-Jin Ryu is done for the season. We'll get into more baseball tomorrow. I do want to talk about the White Sox, big win. NL Central battle for top spot between the Cardinals and the Brewers. So we'll get into that. We'll preview the Stanley Cup final a little more tomorrow as well. So, but fun show today. Lots to talk about. And we'll be back here tomorrow. Same time, same place. To the point.